How y'all doing? This is your boy, Lord Thaddeus Cray. This is going to be a movie review, as promised on Facebook, about the very amazing movie known as Nosferatu. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a history about the film itself. You have to understand, this very good film is not the original version. There were two others, actually three others, that have actually been out before this. The first one was, I want to say, done in either the 20s or the 30s, but don't quote me on this. And that was, of course, Nosferatu, which was directed by F.W. Murnau. This movie I remember actually first watching it was literally a selection of dollar CDs or DVDs at Walmart. And of course, it had the soundtrack to Typo Negative. But anyway, and that's a band, by the way. But one of my favorite songs by them is Black Number One. But anyway, moving past that. The movie is, of course, it's a ripoff, point blank, of Dracula. And let me tell you, the effects and the effort that went into it, especially for the time, were nothing short of groundbreaking. The problem is, Bram Stoker's wife, and I can't really blame her, took real offense to it, and she, let's leave it at this. F.W. Murnau, if I remember right, didn't do anything after that point. She basically had taken everything from him. The very interesting Max Schreck, a German actor, had played the part of Orlok. It's fascinating to me, people think of Dracula as this suave, very sensual being, when actually in the book, he had those qualities to a limited extent. But in Bram Stoker's Dracula, he actually was, well, he had the certain sophisticated appearance. He was actually a very vicious being. He was after one thing, his desire to satiate himself on blood, as well as his lusts. So, in that respect, the original movie of Nosferatu caught that aspect of Orlok, of course, who is, like I said before, based off of Dracula. They caught that part of him very well. Also, the fact that he would bring plague. That was another thing. His appearance was hideous. Like albinistic, bald, almost hairless, like a rat. Just terrifying stuff. And I'm gonna be honest with you, that in itself, like I said, he wasn't like Edward Cullen in Twilight, seeking to go around looking good and seduce girls and quote unquote change them into vampires or any of that crap. Right? Some, of course, the more recent Dracula type movies. Now, that wasn't going around. This bastard brought death. He brought plague. People he bit died. If you know what I'm talking about. This wasn't exactly a romantic kind of thing. It was horrifying. After that, I want to say there was a movie that was made in the 70s. It was, I think, also called Nosferatu. I watched it once, but I don't remember enough to say much about it. But I do know it got fairly good reviews. The third movie I'm going to bring up, of course, has the very talented Willem Dafoe, one of my favorite movies of all time, called Shadow of the Vampire. It's very interesting. It basically has, the story is simple. F.W. Murnau basically wanted to, he wanted someone very realistic to play the part of a vampire, and what's better than an actual vampire? If you get a chance, watch Shadow of the Vampire. Very good movie. Now, we're going to go ahead. Now it's time for the main course. The movie I'm going to talk about, of course, is the best remake of all time, if you consider it, in my opinion. And that, of course, is Nosferatu itself. The movie has a very awesome cast. It basically has, of course, Willem Dafoe, ironically. It has a very well acted crew of actors, leave it at that. Like I said, obviously it has Willem Dafoe, who actually plays a vampire hunter in this one instead of the vampire himself. Lily Rose Depp, who plays Ellen Hunter. uh, or Hutter actually, and Nicholas Hoult as Thomas Hutter. Basically, they're like husband and wife. They're newlyweds. Is basically what the deal is, and pretty much they are. Nicholas is trying, not Nicholas, but Thomas is trying to. He's trying to provide for his wife. He wants the best for her. He wants the best for them. Like I said, they're newlyweds, and pretty much he goes abroad. He's like a. I remember right, he's like a real estate agent or something along those lines, and he gets. He basically is working for a man who's completely insane, known as Knock. He's based off of Renfield. Real sick freak, leave it at that. But either way, Knock is his boss, and he's like, hey, Knock offers him the chance to become a partner, and also, hey, I can get you some money. I can help you close a deal that is actually worth something, and you and your wife can be very well off. And of course, it's all a setup, and there's a reason for that. Ellen, when she was a young girl, she pretty much was she has mental or psionic abilities, and Orlok reached out to her. Of course, this is the vampire, and this is played by the masterful actor Bill Skarsgård. He reaches out to her, and pretty much he's smitten with her. But you have to understand, this version of Orlok, or this version of the vampire mythos, is a disgusting, twisted freak. I'm just going to leave it at that. He is, there ain't no good evening. No. This guy speaks like this. He literally has been, undeath has literally twisted him and made him a monster. He's disgusting. Badass, too. And the thing is, of course, Orlok does whatever he can to get his hands on this woman. Because, again, the woman's husband, Thomas, was set up to work the deal, and I'm not going to ruin any further of the movie. If I go into any more detail, I'll be ruining it. But let's just say this, it is terrifying. And I love how Willem Dafoe, he plays a disgraced professor or doctor. I can't remember exactly what, but he's also a hunter. And naturally, everything else kind of falls in on itself. Of course, the hunters, they interact with individuals. I think they're called, how can I say this the best way? I think they're the Harding family or whatever. But let me tell you this, the suffering that Orlok puts them through, the town, everything. You gotta remember, this is in a, I want to say a town or a village in Germany, not in like England or anything like that. No, this is a terrifying situation. Like I said, Orlok his powers and how he became a vampire they're left ambiguous. Of course, those who know the original story of Dracula know that it's not really said about how he became a vampire. It's left in ambiguity. That basically he definitely made a deal with the adversary, and he became a very powerful Solmonare, which is basically a sorcerer that's literally trained of the devil himself, that can literally ride dragons, control the wind, just do all kinds of scary shit. And of course, supposedly there's 13 of them, and only one, in the end, is left standing. And he's the one who will gain the power which Lucifer grants. Or Belial, I think, according to the old stories. Another thing to think about is that Orlok, when you hear him speak in another language, is in Dacian. That language is very ancient. So, I want to say we're talking about a very old culture of people, like before Christ, like 500 years before Christ, that settled in the Carpathian areas in northern Europe. Of course, Eastern. You're talking about like literally where Europe joins Asia in a lot of areas over there. So Orlok is obviously very ancient. He's older than the classical Dracula, so that's something else to take into consideration. This dude ain't Vlad the Impaler. He's something different, very ancient creature. And of course, there's certain qualities borrowed from Dracula, like the way he dresses to a degree. The old almost that kind of era of dress to a degree, like the old warlord type. and the mustache. They couldn't have done better than that. But I'm just letting you guys know. I know I'm going all over the place, but I want y'all really to watch this movie. It was a masterpiece. I'm just going to leave it at that. Everything was acted very well, and believe me, there's some spots that's disturbing as hell. I'll tell you that right now. This ain't for kids. But if you guys get a chance, man, you really, really need to watch Nosferatu. It's a very good movie, and believe me, it's a long one too, well over 2 hours, but I would recommend it. And also, let's leave it at this, and this vampire doesn't have weaknesses. Not truly. He has one, which of course involves poor Emily being caught in his clutches. Just gonna leave it at that. That's the only weakness he has. That's as far as I'm going with spoilers. So basically, that should tell you something. This guy doesn't play around. He's terrifying, vicious, and truly a fiend. But either way, I hope you guys enjoy this review. And this is pretty much as I promised. I have a few projects. I'm still working on the second chapter of that Warhammer story I was, that I kind of got a little flack over from folks not understanding that this was a fan-related work that I saw online, and I'm simply narrating it. As I said before, that one is still in the works, but either way, you'll be getting some more stuff related to cryptid content from me as well. Until then, you guys be blessed and you be safe.